Yeah, what's going on?
Not a lot. Good to speak to you.
Yeah? Yeah, so I was looking back over everything. I know in the beginning you had you're going to buy just the regular shell.
Yeah.
And I had gotten everything for that. And then you had asked me about the aluminum shell. And do you remember I told you I wasn't making those anymore?
I remember you saying...
Yeah, you said in the email, if you look back in the email, you'll see you asked me pretty hard. You're like, I really, really, really want that one. And I said, I don't do those because they're really, really hard. What I was trying to explain to you was, we talked a lot, so I felt like really excited about making this for you,
Yeah, sure.
And I don't know if you remember me saying, like, the time it takes to make one of those, I could make 10 regular shells. All right, so like,
I remember you said...
So it's really an investment. Like,
yeah.
I go, it goes from being like, whatever it is, in terms of hours, and if you were to divide that up, it basically negates. Like I'm doing it maybe even in the red when you look at the hours here. Okay, just on the shell, and that was why there was 200 above the regular cost of the shell. If you recall, I sent you a video. I sent you several videos. In fact, over 100 pictures throughout the whole process, close up. I have the newest iPhone. I did take the pictures with my LED lights on, LED lights off, with the 3000K lighting. I did them outside. Do you remember I took the pictures outside too?
I just say, I think
So,
there's a...
Yeah, so I was making, I tried to do beyond what to my knowledge, what any maker currently offers. I gave you my cell phone number, and...
A second. You meant to me a second. I think there's a misunderstanding. My issue isn't with...
No, I know. I was just trying to recap the whole thing. The whole thing. So, I made the aluminum shell. Do you remember I showed you the video where it was like concrete, where I was mixing the aluminum? I was showing you why there's that extra charge for that and why it takes so much longer. Remember I showed you all the stuff I did? It was an entire day to set up to do the gel coat. So now I want to explain something. If you look up Epoxicast 670, that's a product you can buy at Smooth On. That's similar to the formulation that I use, which includes over 50% aluminum. Now if you look up University of Baghdad epoxy aluminum study, you'll see there's a molecular chemical change that actually happens with, not with urethane, but with epoxy and aluminum. If you look up Epoxicast 670, which is real close to what I use, it's dimensionally stable. Dimensionally stable in this case here means that beyond 5 mils, never mind the backing of the chopped fiberglass there too, but it negates the fiberglass. The fiberglass is borderline unnecessary, other than to satisfy the general public who seem to think that fiberglass is totally necessary. So I've pulled them and haven't had issues, but everyone feels uncomfortable with anything that doesn't have a backing. So what I did when I made your shell is I used this chopped fiberglass. Okay, those plates. Okay, those plates have that dimensionally stable gel coat. Then they're backed with it's almost like a putty mush of chopped strand fiberglass that's mixed with epoxy. Okay, and that's filled in there. Okay, now so that's there, right? You've got your dimensionally stable thing, a whole bunch of extra epoxy on the back, which is, you can debate whether or not that's necessary or not, but it's there to fill in those spots, because there's those corners and stuff in the ribs that can be hard to fill with like cloth woven fiberglass. Okay, so I put that in there. Okay, now I put an additional chopped strand that's and if you know chopped strand, it's like 1.25 inches thick, so it sticks up all over the place. I made a shell once where I left it unattended, and it was a nightmare. It looked like Superman's Fortress of Solitude, like of spikes everywhere that were like needles. So what I do before it cures is I take show you the two. So here's the compressed chopped strand, okay? This is what is behind your gel coat. This is what's filled into the ribs, some of the corners, some extra stuff around where the gun mount goes, okay? Then, so that these aren't all sticking up and a nightmare to clean, and so that the aesthetic is better, I go through with this very, very thin 6-ounce cloth woven fiberglass, okay? I put that down in strips, I cover it down, I press it down, I use my gloved hands with rubbing alcohol, and I go through all that to get it in. Now, what you're looking at here on the shell, I only saw a screen cap of what, you know, the one issue here. What we're talking about is gel coat with fiberglass, and then 6 ounces of cloth woven fiberglass that's sitting right here that allows you to see a seam, okay?
Right.
The seam sits, this is strong shit when it's all cured, as you'll see. This sits directly against the motherboard, okay? What I said to you when you had first asked me about like the gaps in the back was I said everything is solid. If there's an issue, just let me know. I've never had an issue. I do often fill in those gaps. Now, do you remember when you had messaged me a lot, or like emails asking about timing and like how quickly can we get it? You were like really, you know, really stoked and stuff, and whatever your plan was for building it. So we talked a lot about what was necessary, what wasn't. Remember what should we skip? We had, I don't know, how many times did we? I'm just trying to.
Yes, no, I don't remember that.
What's that? You don't remember what?
Remember anything, discussing anything about being skipped or anything like that? I know we did discussed about, I was obviously curious to know timeline sort of.
Oh yeah. You had been asking me. Anyways, but how many, I was trying to remember, how many times do we do like a video chat like this?
3, 4.
Yeah, 3, 4. I mean, we talked for a long time. I know I did a lot of like tutorial stuff and explained like the painting process and the different types of paints. Remember the oil paint? So I know after April, I think it was April 14th, you had sent me a message again asking about the other shell that you had found some pics of. And you said, this guy posted it, I want one like this, remember?
I remember discussing and saying, is this something achievable with my shell? Yeah, I can't remember.
That's when we went back to it. Right, that's when we went back to that again. And I said, yes, your shell is the same one that Rob has. The difference is the one that Rob has about an extra 150 hours of work.
Yeah.
It's wildly difficult. That was why I explained to you. Remember on April 14th, you were asking about it. I called you right away. And I said, what you're purchasing, what you're paying for is a finished product. So we talked about, you know, trying not to have too much showing because you wanted it to look kind of clean. You know, we talked about the different looks of the pack. You just wanted it real world. So I said I was going to focus on making sure those bright aluminum lines on all the edges were like prominent, remember? And I said it's so much work because each time I dial it back, I have to re-airbrush the enamel and then basically massage the enamel in so that it matches the rest of the paint and the, you know, and the weathering process and stuff. So So that's why I sent you the hundreds of pictures when we were going through it, was to make sure that what you got, the finished thing, was the finished version that you wanted. Remember I said, I was like, dude, there's no way we can send it back, so we got to get it right. And you were like, fuck yeah, dude. Remember?
Well, I think the point you're making is that you were trying to check that I was happy.
I'm not trying to make a point. I'm just trying to recap.
No,
see if there's something that I didn't get right. Because I felt...
I understand that we're remembering things the same way. I remember trying to assess what's achievable. So I've seen this shell. I remember speaking to you on Etsy when I originally was going to get your other shell. And say, look, I'm looking at a few of these now on Etsy, and they look, I feel like in different photos they look slightly different. So are they the same shell? And I remember you saying, some of them are different shells.
Yeah, I said, no, that's a different shell, yeah. Right.
On the same site. So I'm always trying to be sort of understanding what I can expect and also measure my expectations. So when I've seen, I'd seen, and you know, I've watched your stuff on your site for a long time. And I'd seen, I can't remember actually seeing that guy's shell.
Yeah, do you remember on April 15th, I called you right after you the question?
That it was his shell, but I remember seeing the shell. Trying to get an idea, is this what I can expect? Is this the way it, you know, is this how mine's going to look?
Do you remember I called you?
No, I remember you saying.
Remember, but you remember I said, hey, we need to discuss this because I'm getting nervous. Do you remember I said I'm getting nervous that you might think this is something it's not? Remember I said that was the last thing in the world I wanted to do was have you open it and it not be the right thing.
And I remember you saying, this is something I've been working on for a buddy for a year.
Yeah, right.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
That manages expectations. I vaguely remember saying, look, is this one for sale? Can I just have that one? I vaguely remember having a discussion with that and it not being the case or whatever, which is fine, it's for somebody else. But I remember you saying, no, this is something I've been working on for about a year. And I was like, okay, cool. But it's about managing I was trying to manage my what can I expect? What is this going to look like? And also because I'm excited, because that's a fucking beautiful shell, right? It's the most beautiful shell I've seen. But yes, I remember having those discussions with you.
So to be clear, just not to jump out of order or anything here, because I figured it would just make sense for us to like go over everything, because I had probably over 20 hours of correspondence, like through just the email alone, you know. So I just wanted to figure out where I went wrong or whatever here. So, but the shell, what I was trying to say is the shell that you have is the same shell that is Rob's. That's I still have it here. I'm still working on it. They're really, really tricky. They're not a thing I make money on.
Yeah, no, I remember you saying toward the end.
If you want to divide up the hours, you know, like just on Rob's or on yours, because I spent 3 weeks just doing all that airbrushing, and then, you know, using a whole bunch of different wire brushes, brass. I used a lot of chemicals and stuff too to create oxidation at points like where you said you thought there was glue. I've got 3 different chemicals. I sent you the picture of what I used, and I showed you where I used it. Remember I said, so it looks like the clipboard is leaking? Remember you were like, oh, I love that. That's so real world?
I don't remember that. But no, I think there's a misunderstanding again. This is what I'm trying to say. My issue has not been, if you go back through my concerns through the messages, is not with... Obviously, when you messaged and was like, how was it? I hadn't had a proper look at it yet.
Yeah, right. So you got it. So I sent it to you. I was, you know, and you recall I was uncomfortable about the insurance thing because I've never done that before. I've never had anyone ask for no insurance. But you got I got the notification. I got the notification that it had been delivered or picked up or whatever. And then I waited because it was the first time. I don't sell that many of these. I do like a few a year. So it was the first time I sold one to someone that I had spent this much time talking to, and I didn't get the usual like, oh my God, dude, thank you so much. This is amazing. I can't believe it. It was the first time. And then you said that it was damaged in the post, you know, and we talked about that, and I kind of told you that like, dude, I'm sorry, but I can't help you. I can help you try and fix it. Remember the whole UPS thing?
Yeah, give me a second. So, I hadn't had a chance to have a proper look at it. Things, especially in the last few weeks, have been very volatile with my soon-to-be ex-wife and selling the house. It's a very shit thing. So, lots of things are taking precedence over.
Yeah, I hear you.
I would like at the minute. So I hadn't had a chance to have a proper look at it. I picked it up. And to be honest, I wasn't in a place where I was able to be excited about I got the shell. things have been a bit shit. So yeah, I can understand you may have been a bit concerned that I hadn't got in touch. I had a look at it. My issue is not with the visual aesthetic of the shell.
Yeah.
It's not with the fact that bits have come apart.
Well, like I said, if things are damaged, I can't.
It's scuffed. But
Yeah, I
like
wasn't
that,
able to get any good pictures though. You know, it was a lot of days that went by, and then I got the blurry ones.
I would like to clarify that with you a second, because you did mention that it had been 3 days. And
Correct. I waited 3 days before I messaged you.
Okay, yeah, I hadn't done anything on it. I've had a quick look. I didn't have a chance to spend any time with it. So
Well, in the future, if you get something damaged, like from customs, you got to take pictures right away so that you can do the claim and stuff.
all this sort of stuff doesn't really. It's become very low down on the pecking order in the last sort of few weeks. Trying to find somewhere to live, trying to sort out stuff regarding divorce, which I'm not going to go into. You know, but if it is real life stuff takes over from hobby stuff.
Yeah, I hear you. For what it's worth, I didn't want to bring this up, you know, as far, because I tried my best to stay in touch with you throughout the whole thing. But I had an injury, a career-ending injury a couple months ago. My dream job as a paramedic with the Chicago Fire Department came to an abrupt end. So I had another surgery and another one, and now the surgeon is just recommending amputation. So, of my left ankle.
That's terrible.
But because they fucked up the surgeries, it's going to have to be likely just below the knee. So anyways, I get you. I hear you. Stuff, you know, life sucks. It's that's why I am so like enthralled in creating something to get you the fuck out of that situation. That's what I wanted, was for you to open it and be like, dude, who cares about the ex-wife? Fucking Ghostbusters. You know, like that's what I was trying to do.
No, and I appreciate that. Unfortunately, there's not a lot that can.
No, I know. It fucking pales. I get you, dude.
Thank you for that. In regards to, hey buddy, any movement, everything okay? That was the 4th of June. Hayden finally picked it up last night. So this is the 4th of June. End elements have come off during transport, scuffed a lot of paint in those areas we're going to go underneath, which is frustrating. So I have to think of how I'm going to sort that. Okay, so I can understand where you're coming from in that regard. I didn't, give you a thank you and all of that.
I don't. I don't need a thank you. I was sad though, because I want you to be excited, man. You know, like I made the booster tube the way you want it. I tried to get a lot of, I put a lot of detail on the inside and stuff. You know, like I finished the motherboard. If you look at the motherboard up close, like with magnifying glass, you'll see I beveled all the edges by hand with this little window scraper tool I made. You know, like I really did try and make you the most special thing I could. You know, like I've never made one of those risers before, and I tried to etch up the motherboard real cool.
I don't doubt that. I really don't. And at no point, and this is what I tried to tell you in my reply, have I questioned your integrity, your artistic merit, and the quality, and the, any of that.
Uh-huh.
I put I'm looking back at my message here, and that is a bit blunt. I hadn't had a chance to properly, but
So real quick, let me...
Hear me out. On second thoughts, the way I've worded that, and I probably should have... I would word that a lot different now. Having said that, moving on, I tried to explain the superficial damage, that wasn't an issue, okay? The issues have arisen when I've gone inside the pack, and I'll forward you... And by the way, in regards to the stuff coming off... The scuffs from the end filter and HGA, you say, ask for pictures. So let me get back to you with that. That because it wasn't 3 days, it was the next morning or the next evening, perhaps. Can you send me the pictures, the damage, still well, which is why I asked. My shell. I was responding to the first 2 pictures. At least one of the top ones is mine. I'll have to do it tomorrow because it was 1 a.m. and it was all packed away. Right, okay. Right, okay, you said. That's 1 a.m. on the 4th of June. I've sent the photos through.
Yeah, no, that's fine. The photos didn't...
On the 5th of June. So it was 1 day. It was the next day.
Okay, and you sent some of those, yeah, those pictures.
Now...
Some of the pictures you sent were of things that I did on purpose. That I spent time, hours, coming back, checking, like... That oxidation, like, I do that in stages with different brushes, and then I have to come back, and then sometimes I'll put some metal on top of it. It's very tedious. I didn't log all those hours for you because I was really excited to have some of that effect. Like around the HGA, I think it adds to some of the realism. That was the weathering that we discussed, remember?
But the bits here are from where it's come off and scuffed. That's not your issue. That's something that's happened in thing. That's fine.
But I said I'm happy to try and help you figure out how to make those look good, because I don't think that's going to look bad. Because in my idea, remember we talked about it. I think the end filter, as it exists like on your shell with the 84 cut, I think it's like a cover for something else, you know. So it makes sense. It could come on and off, but with some oil paint, those scuffs will actually just add to some character as long as the black is blended in. You know, and that around those edges, that's really an easy spot to practice because you can't fuck it up there.
Sure. The issue though that I had with the shell was when I started trying to do a bit of something on it when I had a bit of time. The first thing was I was really disappointed that a lot of the holes weren't tapped.
Yeah, there's some cues. Let me real quick. So the injectors are not tapped. Those are a 1/4 inch hole is proper. The holes the injector tubes on the side, the injectors.
One of them was tapped.
Okay, so those are just pilot holes. 1/4 inch holes are correct. You put a 1/4 inch hole and then you put the tubing in. On the other end, it's not supposed to be tapped either. Those are pilot holes. I put those little brass things just for fun. Those brass things stick in about 1/10 of an inch. They'll snap right off. That's a silly thing just to point out the hole. They're pilot holes. So you drill out the 1/4. If you look on GB fans, you'll see a lot of people how they've done it. But if you drill out a 1/4 inch, you'll be able to put the tube right in there. So now with the clipboard, which you didn't get it with a clipboard. You know what I mean? When this clipboard is secured, it's used with nuts. You use the 1024 nuts on the back. It's not tapped. That's not something you paid for. You didn't pay for me to tap the end for the clipboard.
Tom, give me a second.
Yeah.
So with the barbs, one of them on each was tapped. On both the top and the bottom, the other one that wasn't tapped, the hole was drilled larger than the other hole.
Yeah. You remember I told you though those are just pilot holes. that was just decorative shit.
Okay.
And correct is a 1/4 inch.
Right. One of them was screws in. So one of them on both the top and the bottom, I could screw in. The one next to it.
Yeah, they're small.
The hole was too big, so I had to fill that with epoxy and re-drill it. So that's what I've done with that. That's why I saw that. On the it's all on the pictures here. The booster tubes, not the booster tubes, the double one. One of them was tapped, one of them wasn't. The hole was too big, and I had to refill that with epoxy.
On the booster tube?
Not the booster tubes. You know, where the two are stuck together. I can't think what they're called off the top of my head. I've sent you the picture. If you go on the thing and have a look, I've circled it.
Okay, I'm sorry. Explain what was the issue with it?
Again, the hole was too big on one of them. So one of them was tapped, and the hole that was drilled on that one was too big. So I had to fill it, re-drill it, re-tap it. That was the same for so if you go onto the
If you look throughout the pictures, I used a few different elbows and the brass fittings that I have here. And you see that they threaded on and off, on and off. They're in every picture at different angles, and I didn't have any issue with that. That didn't get shipped with fittings, correct?
No, it didn't come with fittings.
So listen, there's two things here. The bottom plate on the injectors, for that injectors, I used the thinnest wall possible to try and make it real light. Remember we talked about like the weight and stuff? Like I didn't want it to be like stupid heavy. So there's not enough room. There's not enough material to tap that. I mean, if you tap it, it's gonna like one extra twist and it'll just unthread. So really the best way to do it is the 1/4 inch holes.
One of them was tapped.
Yeah, I understand. You remember I said I put those things on there. Those are just decorative, but nevertheless.
But the second one was drilled too high, and that was the same for a few of the others, including the what's it called?
HGA or the N filter?
No, we just talked about it. The valve, the clip-in valve.
Yeah, that's not supposed to be tapped to the pack.
But one of them's tapped.
I know, so that I could put it on the picture to show you. Do you remember?
The other was too big.
The other hole is correct. The one that's tapped needs to be made big. I told you that. Remember I said they has to go on with nuts. That's why I included the long screws. You gave me an extra $10 for the long screws. Remember?
There's no long screws for it to...
With the nuts. Listen to me. The clippered valve does not get threaded to the pack. That was...
Threaded. I've refilled...
I've never sent out a clippered pack on a pack without nuts on the back. Okay? When it's installed...
There's no room to put nuts. It doesn't come through far enough.
That's why you got to use the long screws.
Right. I don't know.
Okay, so listen. I tapped it. I tapped it like with the screw to stick the clippered valve on there, so that I could do the weathering and stuff around it. You said you didn't need a clippered valve, so I took it off.
No, yeah.
And what I didn't do was make that other hole big enough. The one on the left needs to be made bigger so the screw can go right through and then the nut.
One on the left is perfect.
No, it's not. It's too small.
It was already tapped.
I understand. I understand the confusion here, but I tapped it for display purposes. That was not secured. I just stuck it on there. It was one screw. I just stuck one screw so that it would sit there, and then I used the airbrush and the wire. Like, look all the stuff that's around it. That doesn't come on the pack. You know, all the residue and the different color and the liquid. I put hydraulic fluid on there. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, dude, that's what's that. There's some purple shit on there too. So that's all part of the weathering that I was doing. And I sent you those pictures. So what you got to do is just drill out that hole on the left. That's it.
It's all good. I filled it, drilled it, tapped
it. It shouldn't be tapped. I mean, technically, it is machinable according to the like to Smooth On. They say that same thing with the 670. It's machinable, but I wouldn't trust those little machine screws if it could get knocked off. Is what I'm saying. I wouldn't thread anything into the pack except temporarily to stick it on there. You know, like I've done it. Yeah.
You know the cable. You know the ribbon cable. What about that? Because one of those holes was tapped, and again, the other one wasn't. So I had to fill it.
Yeah, I didn't charge you for that, and that's just to stick it on there. That's not secured. Remember, we had to talk. I said some of this stuff you're gonna have to actually build it. You know, like you're gonna have to get tools out and stuff, and there's gonna be other holes and things that you're gonna have to line up.
Now, as far as I was aware, we had this conversation that you were charging me, and I agreed, £200 for you to drill and tap the holes, to have it pre-drilled and tapped. And that was what the $200 was for. I don't understand. Yeah, well, do you remember?
There were several times that, do you remember? I went back and I said, hold on. let's recap. Do you remember I did that? And I went back and I listed everything. So when you go through there, you see I did not charge you $200 to do that. The only things that are actually tapped, and you can put glue or you can put a washer on the back, would be those pneumatic fittings that are the 27 NPT on the cyclotron and on the side of like where the EDA discs are. That was so that you could just screw them right in, because those are out of the way. The chances of those getting like knocked or whatever. And I gave you some nylon screws or nylon nuts that are for those to go on the back. So those just go in. The point of the threads for that was to make it easy to install them. You know, like I could have just as well done holes, but I feel like threads are nicer.
The threads for what now?
For where you like your fittings, the two straight fittings and the one on the cyclotron, so that you could just screw your fittings in. But like again, it's still like a fiberglass thing, so you don't want to trust those threads too much.
Right.
That's why I included those nylon nuts, so you could just put it on the other side to secure it tight.
Right. Okay. I those nuts must become loose in the.
They're just clear. I think there's 3 of them. I probably wrapped them with something else.
I haven't. They must have come out somewhere because I haven't got those, but that's fine. But yes, I guess then maybe I wasn't clear with what exactly the 200 was covering in regards to drilling and tapping.
Yeah, we can go back. If you want and look. I have to look at the emails because it's all listed. Everything's listed. Yeah. I would never charge you $200 to make pilot holes. That's not right.
Well,
you know?
As far as I'm aware, that's what it was, for you to drill and tap all the pilot holes, all that stuff.
Okay, it also included those small tapped holes on all the cyclotron rings.
Yeah.
Right, and that's a tedious small. Like that's not into the shell. That takes a while.
Okay.
And if there's an error and I have to redo it, it's very time consuming. I mean, it's a thing I have to approach very slowly and carefully to get it right.
I'm not questioning the price per se. It's that.
Yeah, because we discussed everything up front. Remember, I made everything and then you paid me?
Yeah, from what you're saying.
You remember that, though. That was the arrangement. I said I wanted you to see everything before you paid.
It seems like certain things weren't included. When you're talking about drilling and tapping, certain things weren't included. Then, like the ribbon cable clamp, the barbs, the thing for the barbs on the...
Yeah, that's not the drilling and tapping I'm talking about. Right. It's the fittings so that you can put those on. And I'm not charging you for the drilling and tapping on like the parts, because the parts should come drilled and tapped.
But
so
that wasn't.
No, it was $50 for the cyclotron ring holes, which are the 440, threaded ones, and I did have to actually redo one. And it was, I'm trying to remember, 25 for the other 3 holes. I don't remember how it came to 200, but or whatever. But I will look at the email because remember we marched it all out each time so that we were all on the same page. Remember?
Yeah, up the list. I've checked the list. Maybe it's for the fitting of everything then, as well as the drilling and tapping. I can't quite remember, but the point I'm making is those fittings. I wasn't aware those fittings weren't going to be drilled and tapped, so I had to redo that and order the taps, the correct.
For which ones? For what? What did you tap?
For the barbs and for the
yeah. Like I said, I wouldn't necessarily unless you've got metal behind those barbs.
Yeah. And now, obviously, I didn't know that at the time, and obviously because some of them were tapped and some of them weren't.
Yeah, they're tapped. They're tapped only because the pilot holes were small enough for me to just twist that little brass barb in.
And the pilot holes were big enough and some of them weren't. Some of them were drilled too big.
Yeah, I understand the confusion there. Yeah, I mean, but yeah, the quarter inch, yeah.
Cable clamp wasn't. One of them, again, was drilled and tapped, but the other one was loose.
Yeah, so those are really, that's a good example of, like, that's a really tiny screw. Those screws that hold that ribbon cable on. So I'm in the habit of I do a quick drill and I stick them on there, partly because I think it looks cool and I just like to add a little metal to the pack, but that's not meant to hold the cable on. Those are really, if you look at those threads those threads will pull through, and that thing will be off. You know,
Well,
that's
maybe it's pulled through then, but the hole was too big on one of them, and I had to
it's not supposed to be tapped.
fill it, and jack that. So how do you?
I use a long screw.